In this video, I'm going to show you how I made this ROV and what I found with it so far. I started off with 3/4 PVC and made a frame. Next up is the thrusters. I found these online, but they're way too expensive, so I searched Thingiverse. After a quick search, I found the exact thruster I needed. All that was left to do is to print it out. After fighting with the printer a bit, I had the parts that I needed. After all the prints were complete, I assembled it with a motor that I had laying around. The motors that I used are linked in the description. Now it was time to test it out. I hooked it up to a battery and a receiver and speed control that I had from an RC car. It worked very well. It had lots of power and pushed my hand back with significant force.
Wow.
This is also where I realized how sensitive the speed control is to water.
Oh, I got the speed controller wet.
After that somewhat successful test, I built more thrusters and started working on a way to waterproof my speed controls. It was around this time that my speed controls arrived. They're 35 amp BL Heli speed controls, and the reason I bought these ones was because they can be programmed to run in forward and reverse. Here's whenever I flashed BL Heli to the speed controls and then added the parameters that I needed. With the speed controls programmed, I started working on waterproofing. I'm going to waterproof the speed controls with potting compound. I printed out little cases to make potting the speed controls a bit easier. The potting compound is a 2-part mixture that is pretty thick at room temperature. I put the speed controls into their little cases and covered them in potting compound. Potting compound takes multiple days to dry. To avoid waiting this long, I put them in the oven at 170 degrees. After about an hour, they're completely hardened. There was a problem though. The speed controls weren't completely covered. The potting compound, which is normally thick, was very thin at these temperatures, and flowed out the side of my case. To fix this, I used 5-minute epoxy and liquid electrical tape to plug the holes. When they came out of the oven the second time, they were completely covered. Great. The next issue on the list was mounting the motors to the frame. I made these mounts on Tinkercad, which I think worked pretty good, and all I had to do was mirror it to make it work on the other side. While that was printing, I had some time to work on the electronics. I found these cases that I think would work good for keeping my electronics dry. I modified the design for the thruster mount to mount these cases. At this point it really started to take shape. I ordered some lights and modified the case mount to hold them. After a ton of wiring, I had all the speed controls connected, the batteries installed, the Raspberry Pi, and a Pixhawk autopilot to control it. Up next was a video feed, so I designed and printed this case to fit my webcam. Like a glove. Isn't 3D printing awesome? I then absolutely covered it with silicone so it wouldn't leak. After many hours of messing with it, I finally got it to work correctly with QGroundControl. The autopilot communicates with the Raspberry Pi, which then communicates to my phone or computer, and the same works in reverse. On top of that, the video feed is also sent to my Raspberry Pi, which is then sent to my phone or computer via the same Ethernet cable. Doing it this way means I only need one Ethernet cable to control the whole thing, as well as getting video and data. If communication is ever lost from the Rover to the ground station, it will automatically disarm the motors. This keeps it from running away if the tether ever gets cut. With all that complete, it's time to test it.
Go for it. It's going.
Everything looks like it works, and it didn't leak, so I took it out to the lake.
So it has less torque.
We found that one of the motors, the one that I had laying around, was a different KV rating than the rest. It also had way too much buoyancy.
Yeah, I got a lot of buoyancy.
Wow.
After a while, I fixed some of these issues and brought it back out to the lake.
Backwards, and left, and right, and down, and up. Okay.
It just disappeared.
So where's turn? There's turn. It's all working correctly.
Oh?
Oh, it's tilting. I gotta go back up.
That was coming up at an angle.
Yeah, it was like tilting. So I gotta put it in stable. Alright, stabilizer's working. It's still level.
It just disappeared. I can't see it anymore. All you see is the cord going down into the depth.
Oh, it's at the bottom.
Is it?
It's at the bottom.
It was at the bottom, and I could see a blurry image of the silt moving around. It was wintertime, so I had to wait until the boat was on the lake to try anything more interesting. When summer finally came around, I loaded everything onto the boat and made sure everything was still working after sitting for weeks. Somehow, there was a lot of issues to work through. It took until nighttime to get some of the issues worked out, but this was better because there was less people on the lake. I found an area close by, an old underwater bridge, so I sent it down on its first real dive of 34 feet. I started looking for anything that would resemble a bridge or a building. It didn't take very long at all before I found something. I explored these objects for a while to see if I could make out if it was a bridge. After a while, I came back up and then went down again in a slightly different spot. Not too much time goes by before I found some wood like I did before. It was interesting, but I still couldn't tell if it was a bridge or not. I finally found the object that I can definitely associate with a bridge. It looked to be a girder or a support beam of some kind. One downside to exploring things with the Rover is it kicks up a lot of dust. After a while, you lose visibility to the point where you can barely see the object. After a while, you have to bring it up and then try somewhere else and let the dust settle. On the third dive, it took me a much longer time to find anything. When I did find something, it looked like cables and maybe a pulley block of some kind. I explored this area for a little bit longer without finding too much of anything. The batteries were getting low on the Rover, and it was time to go home. The ROV project has been very fun so far. I hope to make more videos of this in the future. Thanks for watching. Bye.